Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Tanvi Taneja. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. Prime Minister Narendra Modi to share his thoughts in the monthly radio program Mann Ki Baat at 11 a.m. Indian Standard Time. Myanmar junta begins heavily restricted polls after 5 years, claims return to democracy. Amid the continuing political turmoil in Bangladesh, people protest in London against the killing of Hindus in Bangladesh. And in cricket, dominant Indian women's team eye series sweep against Sri Lanka in the 4th T20. Overshadowed by civil war and doubts about the credibility of the polls, voters in Myanmar were casting their ballots in a general election starting on Sunday, the first since a military coup toppled the last civilian government in 2021. The junta that has since ruled Myanmar says the vote is a chance for a fresh start politically and economically for the impoverished Southeast Asian nation. But the election has been derided by critics, including the United Nations, some Western countries and human rights groups, as an exercise that is not free, fair or credible, with the anti-junta political parties not competing. Nobel Peace Prize laureate Aung San Suu Kyi, deposed by the military months after her National League for Democracy won the last general election by a landslide in 2020, remains in detention, and the political party she led to power has been dissolved. Myanmar's military-led administration holding a multi-phase general election even as a civil war rages across large parts of Southeast Asian country. Now, let us understand why is Myanmar holding an election? The military ousted the elected government of Nobel laureate Aung San Suu Kyi in a February 2021 coup, just as it was preparing for its second term in office following a landslide election win months earlier. The generals accused Suu Kyi and her National League for Democracy party of electoral fraud, which she rejected. Suu Kyi and much of the NLD, National League for Democracy, were detained along with thousands of junta opponents. The junta pledged to hold an election by August 2023 and restore a democratic system. But that was pushed back as the military lost control of swathes of the country in its battles with ethnic minority rebels and anti-junta militias. The NLD was among dozens of parties dissolved for failing to register. So voting is going on in phases. On December 28th in 102 townships and on January 11th in 100 townships and on January 25th in 63 townships, covering a total of 265 townships out of a total of 330. Junta Chief Min Aung Hlaing has acknowledged that polls will not be nationwide. Dates for counting and results have not been published. Although previous elections used a plurality system where candidates with the most votes won seats. In line with an army-drafted 2008 constitution, 25% of the upper and lower house seats are reserved for serving military personnel selected by the Armed Forces Chief. Now let us see who all are taking part in this election. Only 6 parties are competing on a national level, with 51 contesting within a single region or state. Many parties that ran in the past 2 elections have been disbanded and anti-junta rebels have refused to take part. That has left in the fray only junta-approved parties, including the military's proxy, Union Solidarity and Development Party. This Union Solidarity and Development Party had won last election held by the junta in 2010. This party is fielding 1,018 candidates, fifth of the total registered. Union Solidarity and Development Party, USDP, led by former generals, was routed by the NLD in landslides in 2015 and 2020 elections. As in 2010, with the armed forces controlling 25% of the legislature, and its USDP allies expected to win a large number of seats, military will have power to influence who becomes president, the formation of a government, plus judicial and civil service appointments. The UN, Western countries and human rights groups call the election a sham to sustain military rule. The ASEAN bloc, including Myanmar, has called for a fair and inclusive election. Junta chief Min Aung Hlaing has made a major diplomatic push this year to win support for polls. The military dismissed this international criticism, asserting elections lacked coercion and had public support. Junta spokesperson Zaw Min Tun says that the election is for people of Myanmar, not for the international community. On to West Africa now. Guinea votes on Sunday in a presidential election widely expected to hand Mamadi Doumbouya, who seized power in a 2021 coup, a 7-year mandate, completing the West African nation's transition back to civilian rule. The former Special Forces commander faces 8 other candidates in a fragmented field with no strong challenger. Ousted President Alpha Condé and longtime opposition leader Cellou Dalein Diallo remain in exile. Guinea holds the world's largest bauxite reserves and the richest untapped iron ore deposit at Simandu, officially launched last month after years of delay. Doumbouya has claimed credit for pushing the project forward and ensuring Guinea benefits from its output. His government this year also revoked EGA subsidiary Guinea Alumina Corporation's license after a refinery dispute, transferring its assets to a state-owned firm. Kosovo will hold a parliamentary election on Sunday as Prime Minister Albin Kurti's party seeks a majority to end a year-long political deadlock that has paralyzed parliament and delayed international funding. This is the second election this year in Europe's youngest country. Prime Minister Albin Kurti's party failed to win a majority in February and coalition talks collapsed. After months of political deadlock, President Osmani dissolved parliament in November and called for an early vote. If a new government is not formed and parliament does not reconvene soon, the crisis would deepen. Lawmakers must elect a new president in April and approve nearly €1 billion in loans from the European Union and the World Bank, which are set to expire in the coming months. Polls open at 600 hours GMT and close at 7. Exit polls are expected soon after the voting ends. Israel became the first country to formally recognize the self-declared Republic of Somaliland as an independent and sovereign state on Friday. The Israeli move triggered reactions in the region. Egypt joined Turkey, Somalia and Djibouti in condemning Israel's recognition of Somaliland as an independent state. African Union too rejected the recognition of Somaliland as an independent and sovereign state.
Israel became the first country to formally recognize the self-declared Republic of Somaliland as an independent and sovereign state on Friday.
It's good to talk to you, and before anything else, I want you to know that I'm signing now, as we speak, Israel's official recognition of Somaliland and its right of self-determination.
On the other hand, Somaliland President Abdirahman Mohammed Abdullahi welcomed the Israel's recognition.
After more than 3 decades of peaceful self-governance, constitutional order and democratic practice, Somaliland has received its first formal international recognition as a sovereign and independent state. This development affirms an objective reality that has long existed.
Asked by the New York Post newspaper whether the United States planned to also recognize Somaliland, Trump said no. Trump further asked, does anyone know what Somaliland is, really? However, Israel's move did not go well for Somalia, which rejected any recognition of Somaliland. Condemning Israel's move as an unlawful step, Somalia's government said in a statement, "The federal government affirms its determination to pursue all necessary diplomatic, political, and legal measures in accordance with international law to defend its sovereignty, unity, and internationally recognized borders." Israel's move also triggered reactions in the region. Egypt said Foreign Minister Badr Abdelati held phone calls with his counterparts from Somalia, Turkey, and Djibouti to discuss what they described as dangerous developments in the Horn of Africa, following Israel's announcement. Egypt's foreign ministry said that the ministers condemned Israel's recognition of Somaliland. African Union also rejected any recognition of Somaliland. The chairperson of the African Union Commission said in a statement that chairperson of the Commission firmly rejects any initiative or action aimed at recognizing Somaliland as an independent entity, recalling that Somaliland remains an integral part of the Federal Republic of Somalia. Residents in the Somalia capital voiced concern after Israel formally recognized Somaliland as an independent state.
I heard the news that Somaliland has received recognition from Israel, even though it has not obtained full recognition from the world. This is something regrettable, and that today Somali people and Somali territory are seeking recognition from Jews.
In the late 1980s, opposition movements formed across the country to challenge the military regime of Mohammad Siad Barre. In 1991, rebel forces drove Barre out of Mogadishu, plunging southern Somalia into chaos. After Mohammad Siad Barre's fall, Somalia split into regions controlled by militias and groups. In the northwest, the Somali National Movement (SNM) seized control and declared independence as the Republic of Somaliland. Somaliland declared independence in 1991, and Puntland declared partial autonomy in 1998. Somaliland sits on the Gulf of Aden along one of the world's most critical maritime choke points linking the Red Sea to the Indian Ocean. Fuzail Ahmed reports for DD India.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky met with Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney on Saturday in the Canadian city of Halifax ahead of his meeting with US President Donald Trump. Carney and Zelensky held a bilateral meeting to discuss the latest developments in the ongoing peace talks, and Carney affirmed Canada's full support for Ukraine. In a brief statement with Zelensky, Carney announced an additional $2.5 billion of economic aid for Ukraine that will help Ukraine unlock financing from the International Monetary Fund.
I'll just finish with one point on. We've provided military assistance, further military assistance. We're announcing today further economic assistance for Ukraine, $2.5 billion worth of economic assistance that helps unlock financing from the IMF, from the World Bank, from the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, to begin this process of rebuilding.
Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin said on Saturday that Russia could see Kiev was in no hurry to end the Ukraine conflict by peaceful means. He also said that if Ukraine did not want to resolve the conflict peacefully, then Russia would accomplish all goals of its special military operation by force.
We see that smart people also appeared in the West. They recommended the authorities in Kyiv to accept decent condition of ending the conflict and offer good basic condition for ensuring Ukraine's long-term security, restoration of relation with the Russian Federation, and economic recovery of Ukraine. But we see that unfortunately, the ringleader of Kyiv regime are in no hurry today to solve the conflict peacefully.
A 6.6 magnitude earthquake struck off Taiwan's northeastern coast on Saturday, the U.S. Geological Survey said, the second major tremor to hit the island within days. According to the center, the quake was felt across Taiwan, with buildings shaking noticeably, while no reports of casualties or property damage have been released so far. Taiwan Railway said that it suspended 4 trains operating in Yilan, affecting more than 270 passengers. Fire department said that they received 2 reports of people trapped due to the earthquake and had dispatched rescue teams. In Yilan County, the area closest to the epicenter, local authorities issued alert warnings of possible aftershocks and urged residents to evacuate immediately if they found structural damage to their homes. The second Icha Kamana Orange Festival and Food Festival that started from Friday is attracting foodies to taste local food and popular oranges in Muglin. The Orange Festival, organized in Muglin Bazaar in Bagmati, aims to promote local produce and culture. Ramhari Kandel, president of the Chitwan Industry Association Icha Kamana Committee, stated that the festival is organized to attract both domestic and international tourists. The Orange Festival is marked by cultural evenings, also with programs like interactions between expert farmers and people's representatives and orange eating competitions. The farmers in the Icha Kamana rural area are annually making transactions of 9 to 10 millions from orange production. Still to come on this edition of DD India Live. Cold wave conditions and dense fog grips North and East India. England win their first test on Australian soil in 15 years in the ongoing Ashes. And what happens when elephants play football? Well, Nepal's annual Chitwan festival shows us how.
Jharkhand will mesmerize you with majestic nature, rich heritage and colorful culture.
Hello. Johar.
Johar. It fits perfectly.
Thank you.
Full workout हो गया.
Ready?
Postcards from Jharkhand on National Geographic.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Tanvi Taneja. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will share his thoughts with the people of the country and abroad in the Mann Ki Baat program, the last program of this year, 2025, at 11 a.m. Indian Standard Time. It will be the 129th episode of the monthly radio program. The program will be broadcast across the entire Akashvani and Doordarshan network. It will also be live streamed on the YouTube channels of AIR News, DD News, DD India, the Prime Minister's Office, and the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. Akashvani will broadcast the program in regional languages immediately after the Hindi broadcast. As the year draws to a close, winter conditions across India are set to continue disrupting daily life, with cold wave and dense fog persisting across several regions. Sub-zero temperatures were recorded in Kashmir, while parts of Uttar Pradesh, Rajasthan, Punjab, Haryana and Jharkhand and West Bengal reported cold wave conditions. The Met Department also predicted scattered to fairly widespread light to moderate rainfall or snowfall over Jammu and Kashmir's Ladakh during December 30th to January 2nd. Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand are likely to see isolated to scattered light to moderate rainfall or snowfall during the same period. For the next few days, the IMD has forecast a partly cloudy sky for Delhi with shallow to moderate fog during the morning hours as fog and cold wave conditions continue to disrupt daily life. On to Bangladesh now. As the country moves closer to the February 2026 elections, it is facing growing concerns over rising extremism and the safety of religious minorities. Political uncertainty has deepened following the change in government, with incidents of mob violence and attacks on cultural institutions on the rise. Even new political formations are divided over alliances with Islamist groups.
With elections scheduled for February 12, 2026, Bangladesh is witnessing a worrying rise in extremism, raising serious concerns over the safety of Hindus and other minorities. Since the fall of the Awami League government in August 2024, religious fundamentalism has increased across the country. On Saturday, more than 30 female leaders of the newly formed National Citizen Party voiced concern over rising extremism in the country and protested against NCP's possible alliance with Jamaat-e-Islami. They said that such an alliance would undermine the spirit of the 1971 Liberation War and democratic values. BNP acting chairman Tariq Rahman recently returned to Bangladesh, promising safety for all communities. However, continued mob violence against minorities tells a different story. Analysts warn that election held without inclusive participation, especially with the Awami League barred, risk lacking democratic legitimacy.
International community must maintain that there should be an inclusive, because without inclusivity, there is no democracy, frankly. So all sections of the people or the electorate must be able to present their views and cast their votes, and then only you can call the elections free and fair. So let us hope that the Bangladeshi Election Commission and the government take a holistic view of the situation, and the international community is vigilant.
Attacks on religious minorities and secular institutions have surged, including mob lynchings, desecration of graves, and threats forcing the cancellation of women's sports and cultural events. Extremist groups are increasingly using social media to spread propaganda and recruit youth. The brutal lynching of Deepu Das has deeply shaken minority communities across the country.
Everybody knows it is not only Bangladesh, all over the world, the recent scenario in Bangladesh, particularly a lot of mishaps in the national level, as you have seen the damage in the frontline news media office, brutal killing of Deepu Chandra Das, and there are a lot of things in Kumilla, Kurigram, and all over the country. Security situation in the country is highly dismal.
On Friday night, a concert by veteran rock musician James was cancelled in Faridpur after clashes left at least 25 people injured. And this is not an isolated case. In recent weeks, several cultural organizations have faced the ire of Islamic fundamentalists in Bangladesh. Ravindra Chauhan's report for DD India.
Meanwhile, members of Hindu communities in London staged a protest outside the Bangladesh High Commission on Saturday against the killing of Hindus in Bangladesh. Protesters raised slogans demanding an end to violence against religious minorities in Bangladesh. Demonstrators called for accountability and international attention to what they described as a pattern of targeted violence against Hindu minorities. On to sports news now. After securing an unassailable 3-0 lead, a dominant Indian women's team aims to extend their superior form against Sri Lanka in Sunday's 4th T20 International. Harmanpreet Kaur's side has completely overwhelmed the visitors, consistently chasing down targets without allowing the opposition a foothold in the series. India restricted Sri Lanka to scores under 130 in every outing and successfully reached those targets while losing not more than 3 wickets per match. England held their nerve in a low-scoring thriller to beat Australia by 4 wickets in the 4th Ashes Test at the Melbourne Cricket Ground to claim a historic win. England won their first Test on Australian soil in 15 years, restoring their pride with a gutsy victory in a clash that was over inside 2 days. England head into the last Test 3-1 down, but their effort has helped them avoid a series whitewash. Elephants entertain tourists and residents at the annual Chitwan Elephant Festival in Nepal's Soraha, showing off their football skills on the field. Painted with colorful designs, these elephants took part in a penalty shootout following cues from their handlers. The 3-day festival includes the elephant football match as well as a beauty contest and ends on the final day with worship rituals for the animals. That's all for this edition of DD India Live. Do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. Connect with us on our different social media handles at DD India Live. And you can also download our DD India mobile app for quick news and updates on the go. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Tanvi Taneja. From all of us here in New Delhi, thank you for watching. Namaskar.